Yeah.
Oh, that's fine. Um, yeah, so I just want to start here by welcoming my wonderful client, Tina Tristani. We just got finished with our 6-week course together, and it was quite the journey. So I just wanted to invite Tina here to share some of her experience with us. Um, so, would you like to start by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about you and what you do in the world?
Yeah. I can't believe I met you only 6 weeks ago, which is crazy to think of. Time passage has been crazy, but my name is Tina. Um, it's actually Christine, but everyone's called me Tina since I was very young. And I kind of found out about this when everyone was doing virtual hangouts and I was reconnecting with a super close, my oldest best friend, who also grew up in Puerto Rico. And yeah, anyway, so Adriana Perici, who also was in our group, got me involved. Just was sort of like, are you down to dive into this space that we always both at different times probably have leaned into and loved, movement, sensuality, kind of, but also have chosen for different reasons, yeah, to kind of hold different structures around, and yeah, and leaning into it a little more freely. And I was like, this is the
Mm.
perfect time. So I was super excited, nervous,
Mm,
but excited. Yeah.
beautiful.
And I'm in Seattle, and most of my family's in DC right now.
Sweet. And you have a little bit of background in dance too, right? You I believe you said you did burlesque for a while, which is super
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. Um, but we started when you started coming to the virtual dance parties actually, so that was like a little probably two
Yes.
weeks
Oh,
before the course
yeah.
started.
Oh,
Yeah,
that
it was
was the
super fun.
greatest awakening. It really
Mm,
felt like super timely too, in the way that I was starting to feel restless, and I had been instructing yoga classes for like 6 days a week. So the movement had been so present, and then it was cut short. And this space in my life, I love dance, but always like held back my, I don't know, just letting go in the space and being present in the space enough to like let myself fail so I could grow a little more, kind of thing, you know? And so I
mm,
was just like, I'm ready to break down those barriers. Adriana had been part of my dance life too. So I think that even having her in there was an added layer of like letting go of old shit and just kind of
mm,
moving into a new space. Today's a new
mhm.
day with my body, kind of thing.
Yes.
Um, but the burlesque too, it's kind of it's almost 7 years ago. Um, the way that I approached that movement, coming from a more like technical background, or at least as it relates to jazz or movement and turns and quick things, and getting things in each time uh, count. Um,
Right.
yeah, it was super amazing, those 30-minute dance sessions, just to like break back into that space of free movement without a structure or reason, but just to feel good. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, so that
Yeah.
was, yeah, impactful when it happened, and kind of bridged the like, I'm definitely ready for a little more.
Mm. Yeah, and it was during the middle, we're in the middle of the pandemic when everything started. So like, can you remember back to those weeks when you were deciding to join in on the course, and like what what were you looking to achieve, or like what problem were you hoping to that this course would help solve when you were making that decision?
Yeah, wow. It's sort of like time travel. That was very like that. Um, yeah, I think when I was sharing this with others, I was kind of like just really my partner and Adriana, who had brought it up. But when I was thinking about it, I wasn't hesitant because I had nothing going on. Like I needed contact, and I think at the time when I thought about it, there had been enough Zoom meetings and things that I felt like ready for something like that. But it was really also at the same time difficult. I was like, you have to be able to do this. There's so few times in the day. I was also shaming myself somehow. I was like, you know, you lost both your jobs, which sucks, but also you have all this time, do something with it. But I just really also didn't feel like it was pressured. I really felt like it was needed for, I don't know, just to feel close to other people going through the same stuff, but in a different, totally different experience level. But that one common thread of the pandemic and
So for you,
I,
a lot of it was community.
yeah, thanks for bringing it back. I'll go on a tangent for a long time. Yeah, community for sure, and some consistency, something that was like out of my comfort zone, with different people that I didn't know. Sometimes that helps, but I think also with the like layer of dance, which is always just trips up my ego at some capacity. It's been very woven into my like life since I was 3 at least. Montessori, when we started ballet in Montessori school. I remember. But yeah, I was always in the corner doing something else, you know, I don't know. Not
I
paying
also
attention.
started dance when I was, well, I think I was 2.5. That's the number I
Whoa,
get, but
yeah,
I started dance at that age. So I totally know what you
that's
mean.
amazing.
It's a definite journey. So what was, what at that time were you thinking, what would it mean for you personally to do this work, or play, or how is it kind of, what perception were you having at that role it would take in your life? I know that's kind of
That,
not a question.
yeah, it definitely transformed over the 6 weeks in a way that felt like the time was longer because it happened so quickly even. But I've definitely always not shamed fully. I've been outward because I have 2 older brothers, and I think also being the youngest, I've always like been independent in a lot of ways, but I definitely, I don't know, I'm not super comfortable being overtly sensual in a lot of spaces because my family's always around. But then also detaching just like my own body from like soul, like sex that is something public, like that it doesn't have to be, yeah, mutually exclusive, that you can, and also that there shouldn't be a problem with either, but that even in the spaces where I just want to be like with less clothing on, um I was ready to I was like, this, it's, you know, I'm almost 29. It's time to stop feeling this bashful, when I've also simultaneously made a lot of other progress in that way. I'm just like, let go of this need to still hide other things.
Mm-hmm.
That was like a space of discomfort, but that I really was like ready to just do away with. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I feel you on that. So like for you, you feel like the biggest impact you were thinking this would have was on opening in sensuality, feeling more comfortable in that expression, and like in your and like shedding layers of shame that we all carry, right? That's kind of what it was,
Yeah.
the purpose it was serving. Mm.
Yeah. And it did shift, I think, in different ways because it started to tap into layers of my just genuine, like second guessing myself in every like millisecond of a social setting that's with new people that I value their opinion and like, you know, I'm worried about all the things. And it definitely is present in other places in my life, but it showed up more regularly than I thought in just this
Mm.
new way, I think. And so I was just grateful that I could see progress too in a way that I wasn't expecting to with that.
Mm.
With like not being in my head at all and just catching myself being present instead of the, so what am I looking like now? Like, are they
Right.
think when they're clearly talking. So it's not.
So that leads
um,
me into my next question, which is like, what three parts of the system that that I was sharing with you, what three parts of the framework do you feel like made the biggest impact?
hmm. That's a good question. I mean, I think everything plays its role, but for me, the consistency of like both the grounding in at the beginning, that was always very helpful to like release tension before the movement came. Um, I love the dance class and having it be so different from anything else I've ever experienced. It was even hard to describe to people in a great way. I was like, it was giving me difficulty, especially with my mom, who's like, modern dance. I'm like, sure.
Mm.
She was like really looking for something to hold on to.
Uh-huh.
I was like, I don't know. But yeah, I think also the just free dance movement and getting sweaty and seeing the amazingness that happens from just getting my heart rate up in a way where if it was like associated with a workout or like something horrible like jogging, which I hate because I just have asthma, so I've never liked jogging. But
Reasonable.
that, yeah, but also I could be more cardiovascular in shape. Yeah, I love just the movement, and it like helped me feel my body more and regular the consistency of it, um, and that your presence wasn't always like robotically the same. Whereas I think in some other experiences I've had, there's this like upbeat consistency, but you kind of moved with us, and it all felt very communal and like this beautiful sister friendship group.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's definitely what it felt like for me too. So I'm hearing you saying that you love the opportunity to ground in, which we did at the beginning of every experience. Uh, so what?
The dance classes, I think just experiencing like an hour-long class that had different components, and then we actually performed. I could even observe in myself like reactions to things that like I don't like learning choreography and performing because it reminds me of bad experiences, which were fewer than the good ones, but still, present. And but also stripping that from itself and doing it differently and still performing, but changing the words too. It's sort of just being seen and um, changing the meaning a little bit,
Mm,
which is
yeah,
exciting. Yeah.
that's something that we were like presencing a lot, right? Like instead of the traditional ideas that we have around performance, like kind of dismantling that, coming back to ourselves, expressing that sensuality, and then allowing ourselves to be witnessed.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like that was something that you felt was impactful. Yeah.
Yeah. So many
Uh,
things. I could
mm,
go on.
well, I love that there were so many things. I appreciate hearing that. And then like the last thing you said was like that consistency and community. Um, yeah, that was beautiful to have in the midst of all of the ever changing landscape.
So
And
many
that
things
was these
happen.
last 6 weeks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at the time of the 6 week course is when the murder of George Floyd occurred, and then there was protests, and there was just a lot of, we were all carrying so many emotions. Yeah, so being able to presence alchemizing emotions as a part of it, I felt a big responsibility to share that and allow us to not
Yes.
have to, like, definitely not to ignore that, and to activate ourselves and find our place within that as well. So thanks for going on that
I
journey.
really, I'm glad you mentioned that because I can also forget other impactful things easily. Yeah, that was so beautiful to both think about and grow through together and have all of these different moments where I think we were all feeling different things and both in person and experiencing other things at home. And um, just to have a space that felt safe to even express like whatever it was felt great, um, to just connect with that regularity, because usually if a certain time passes, it's easy to kind of retreat back into other cyclical patterns and even mental things where you don't want to connect with others when it's so great at right when it's happening to talk openly about everything,
Mm-hmm.
both anger related sentiment, like feeling sad and sharing tears over like virtual. It's just sort of, it was really beautiful to be a part of that and feel like I could also share openly. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I don't always do it, but I just felt safe, um,
Mm.
to process those things, even if I wasn't ready to be outward about it. I think it helped me, um, yeah, move through it, um,
Mm.
a little more fluidly, a little more comfortably. So
Thanks
I'm
for
grateful for,
presencing that.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you for presencing that. I think, yeah, as part of our power in our pussy empowerment is like connecting to those raw emotions and not pushing them down and not, moving away and dissociating from our bodies. So it gave us an opportunity real time with really triggering uh, experiences occurring. It's like we are going to stay present and move through it instead of like hide from it, which I thought, it was definitely an exercise for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
More than an exercise, like it's like a real time of activating power is needed as non-Black women, right? So we got to really address that, and yeah, it was a really powerful journey. um
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I think that it's also a difficult time too, as it relates to just like constant overload of opinions, but also like a massive fear that whatever you're saying will be misconstrued. And then the added thought processes, if you're thinking about these things, of like, but how can I actually tangibly do things that are beneficial? And what is
mm,
my place in anything? And then also, I'm, yeah, and I was really grateful for, um, like all of the other opportunities to think about things and people that you brought in.
mm.
And oh my God, why am I?
Fanny Sosa.
Thank you. I'm like,
Yeah, Fanny
there's this
Sosa,
weird
she's
brain thing. Fanny Sosa. That was just a beautiful, because it led to other conversations I had after, and just other thoughts about what it means to be a white Latina, but also heavily Norwegian on my mom's side. So not even really possibly being recognized as such, even from a different perspective, just like visually. Um, and like thinking about all of the different layers. It was so interesting. And I also had just a beautiful sort of eye-opening, um, Q&A with her. Like that was really cool.
yeah.
But yeah. And so I'm glad that you did constantly just morph things as they happened to be, um, yeah, just moving with the times in a way that was super aware and super adaptable and human,
Mm,
humanized the whole experience, because I think that
mm.
things shift constantly. And so there will be moments where you have huge clicks, what light bulb moments.
Yeah.
And or it's super gradual, but it's always really nice to constantly like be in a space where you feel a little uncomfortable and you're learning a lot from directly from others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just feel like the universe had a divine timing for us as well because in connecting with Fanny Sosa, I had trouble connecting with her in the weeks prior, and then in the middle of it, I followed up again, and we were able to have that conversation with her about decolonizing twerking and Black pleasure and the experience of Black bodies in twerking and non-Black bodies in twerking. And that was just such a powerful conversation and such divine timing. So yeah, thank you for being present and along for the ride for that.
Yeah, it was
And
great.
and I'm wondering, so what results do you feel like you achieved as a result of working together for 6 weeks? And we were meeting 3 times a week, so it was pretty concentrated.
Yeah. I think that I'm gonna like go through a list in my head so I don't forget things. But I think specifically as it relates to movement and like body comfort, I have grown tremendously in the way of like not closing the blinds or even closing the windows, about being heard, because I live right on the street level, and that's always like a added layer of just like gaze that feels intrusive a little bit. But kind of shedding that, because it's a very present thing for me to like overly, I'm just very sensitive to like stimuli of so many things, and being aware of people's like perceptions, probably half the time falsely assuming like that people are having certain perceptions of how I'm comporting myself. But so that's definitely a place that I felt an immediate like transformation quickly, that I'm super grateful for. I think also just in a way with movement that, is so liberating, and so, but in a way also embracing the movement for what it is, and that it is sensual. I think I loved that piece of it, because I also love just liberating body movement, but I also was like empowered by the naming my pussy and like naming, I don't use that word very often.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
that was a
that makes
big,
total sense.
yeah. So that felt really empowering. And the recurring image of sort of using these visual strategies to work through what it is that we perceive as our baddest self, our most empowered, highest self. That was super cool, because I don't do those things willingly unless I'm being guided through them. And it felt like now I have that tool to revisit. And it just, it felt very accessible.
You're talking about the meditation where we're connected to our inner bad bitch, right? And like visualizing that and working with that energy.
And even having the portal accessible as well, where you gave so many different recorded ways to revisit things that you were, so both the lessons that you had had us working throughout the workshop, but in addition, all of those, I'm still diving into some of them, just the meditations and like it's really just great to also have it to now absorb it after all of it has happened.
I love that. Yeah, we made a pussy empowered portal where all of like the membership site where all of the information was, and some extra resources, meditations and movement practices. And it felt like a very activated space. Like there's a lot happening in here.
But I always wanted to like go back for something new. It was like
sweet. Well, I'm glad you're still exploring that. And so can you finish the sentence? I almost didn't join because
I almost didn't join because I convinced myself somehow it wouldn't be worth it, or I would have, whatever the appropriate grammar. Some trickery, mental sorcery.
Mental sorcery is always at work. And can you complete this sentence? My favorite part of working with with you is, or with your program?
That came really quickly, but it's very cheesy. It was like my favorite. It's my favorite part, right? About work
Mm-hmm.
is your light. Is just your radiant
Oh.
smile. No, but
Mm.
just the like pretty assured knowledge that I will come out of it feeling so much better and just yeah.
Mm. Thank you for sharing that. It makes my heart warm and fuzzy to hear.
It was very cheesy, but it like is
I
genuine.
love cheese. I'm very cheesy myself. So,
Yeah, that was the truth.
and oh, well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Who would you recommend this to and why? This work to, or yeah.
Oh, so many people.
Mm.
um, I think that it's success. I think honestly, anyone who is curious about themselves, like anyone, I guess, you'd have to be in a space where you'd be open to new things. So, but that could also be a process to grow through. But
Mm-hmm.
I have thought immediately of some female family relatives, like especially the ones like my mother, although she is in many different generations.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's like in her 70s, which is great, but I don't know. Yeah, she just like is very also tapped out of that where she heavily still censors herself a lot. And just
Mm.
in her existence of, how she should be. So, yeah, someone who is struggling with that, whether they're aware of it or not.
Mm. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I know you said you were trying to relate it to modern, or she was trying to relate it to modern dance. What I wonder what she would. Did you ever say it was called Pussy Empowered Dance to
Yeah,
her?
I told her
Did,
it was, well, I told her the full name Sweat Play Twerk, and she doesn't really know what twerking is. I don't think she would have, she also doesn't like watch, she doesn't connect with pop culture at all. So she's definitely
I
like,
get that.
it wouldn't resonate as something sexual. Actually, she would think it was like a
Mm,
workout. So
mm-hmm.
it took some interesting, but she wasn't upset. I mean, she came to my burlesque show, several
I love
performances.
that. I
So
love
she's
hearing
always
that.
supportive, but I think it took her some difficulty even conceptualizing what it was.
Right.
Um,
Totally.
yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. Yeah, my mom haven't got used to me just being like pussy this, pussy that, and now I mean she's on the train too, so that's pretty fun to get to
Oh my
share
God.
with her and like.
Are you close with your mom?
Yeah,
Yeah.
she
Nice.
and she's gone to a couple courses that I've gone to too, which is super fun. So it's been fun having her along on that journey. Which yeah, and the different generations, we all have so many different things that are present during our kind of our generation, and like I mean us with social media, and it's all different, but it's a lot of it comes back to the same thing of like patriarchal shame and all that stuff. So there's like, yeah, I mean,
It is the
any,
common thread
right.
in
So
most, in a lot of
yeah,
pain. Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah. I know. I was thinking about that too. I'm like bringing it back. I'm like, the more layers you strip, it's always that the low, it's the root is
Mm,
always the root.
yeah, totally.
Um, I was going to tell a very quick, funny joke that my mom also, because she's 71, I don't think it necessarily is related to her age, but she doesn't associate the word pussy with like our beautiful vulva and vagina.
Mm.
She associates it with like a cat and she uses it
Yeah.
regularly.
Oh
So
my gosh.
that's also
Yeah.
funny because everyone, it's like a family. We laugh.
I mean, you know what? Pussy should be a normal word anyway, whether
I
it's
think they're emblematic. They like, represent a lot of things. I love cats. I have two.
yeah. Feline and sensual,
Yeah,
totally.
feline independence.
Mm, I like that. Um, Yeah, so that pretty much wraps up our conversation. Thanks so much for taking the time
Oh
to
my
go
gosh.
through the experience and reflect with me. It was so wonderful to hear your thoughts about,
I
yeah, your
know.
reflection. I appreciate that.
Thank you for inviting this opportunity. I was also, I know I mentioned it or by email, but just to reiterate that truthfully, if this had ended and there wasn't some sort of follow up with you or anyone or something, I would normally just sort of like move on to something else and not really process it after the fact, which I
Mm,
do often. And so it's sort of something that, yeah, has felt really good. And I'm really grateful that you both reached out, but also created that opportunity to revisit it
mm.
post and a little more tangibly. Yeah.
Well, thank you for being down. I just want to share like a line popped up into my head. Mama Gina, who is a feminist author and teacher, she says, "Undigested good turns to shit." So I just thought it was in my head. Yeah, it's like important to digest and reflect on the experiences
Yeah.
that we have along the way. And yeah, and if
Yeah,
you're watching
totally.
this, thank you for watching our conversation and just like witnessing what goes on in one of my programs. And if you're interested in learning more, then please comment below if you're watching this on Facebook or just whatever link I have below. I'm sure I have a link that will link you to learning more information about what I'm offering. So thank you so much for watching. And thank you so much, Tina. I appreciate
Yay,
you
we're
so
done.
much. Yay.